Pixel 10. Not the Pro, not the Pro XL, just the good old baseline Pixel 10. And folks, this phone has had a pretty controversial launch. You've got the complaints around the underpowered chipset, you've got the irritations surrounding the downgraded main and ultra-wide cameras, and there's also the issue with Google still persisting with a 128GB base model that has just UFS 3.1 storage speeds. And I get it, and I agree with all of these complaints, but I have to say, after using this thing for a month now, there is absolutely more to that story. So let's dive in. Starting with design, and after a pretty decent visual refresh last year with the Pixel 9 lineup, this year we have probably the smallest year-to-year change with the Pixel 10 series. There are literally only two changes, which is firstly that there are now matching speaker grills on the bottom, meaning if you're outside the US, then the SIM card tray has been moved to the top. And then the only other change is that the camera unit within the visor on the back here has been made just that little bit larger. Other than that, everything else is identical. Same matte rails, same glossy rear panel, same button placement, and even the bezels on the front are the exact same. And look, I freaking loved the design of the regular Pixel 9 last year, so honestly, I'm not that upset that the changes have been kept to an absolute minimum this year. The only change I wish Google would have made was to make this rear panel frosted instead of glossy. But aside from that, this really is a beautifully designed and built phone, so no complaints from me here. Now, I should point out, when I say that design changes have been kept to a minimum, I'm only referring to changes on the outside, because on the inside, in a move that really surprised me in the best way possible, Google decided to lead the way, at least amongst major Android phones, by adding support for Qi 2 magnetic wireless charging. Finally! And look, it's not that I have a bunch of MagSafe accessories floating about, but that's because up to now, no major Android phone has supported the feature without the use of a case. But now that we finally have a major Android phone coming to the party and rumors of more to come in 2026, I'm stoked that this is an ecosystem I can now start properly exploring. Now, as for the display, I'm going to keep this short and sweet. You're getting a pretty great panel on this phone. It actually received a slight bump up in the brightness department over last year's Pixel 9, which is very much appreciated. And I will say the display for me was set to 120Hz by default this time around, although I'm not entirely sure whether this was just a setting that carried over from the phone that I was using before this. So it's still worth double checking if you've picked this phone up yourself. As far as haptics go, they are still up there as some of the best that you can get in a phone, but they're also unchanged from last year for what that's worth. And whilst the fingerprint sensor also remains unchanged from last year's Pixel 9 lineup, last year was the year that we finally made the switch to ultrasonic, which made a huge improvement to the fingerprint sensor's performance. And so thankfully, this year, it is still a very reliable fingerprint sensor experience. Then we come to battery life, and I've got to say, after a year of fairly mixed results from various phones, unfortunately, the Pixel 10 has been one of the weaker entries. Like, there was maybe one day with very light usage where the phone was sitting at about 30% at the end of the day, but that was the best that I could get out of it. More often than not, it's actually been well into the red by the end of each day that I've used this thing, and there were even a couple of heavier days of use where the phone couldn't even last a full day. And the weak battery life isn't helped much by the fact that it also has some of the slowest charging speeds on the market. So if you're someone who absolutely relies on a phone giving you more than a day's worth of battery life, or you want blazingly fast charging speeds, then this is not the phone that I'd recommend. But if you're more like me, where you have pretty easy access to chargers throughout the day and you're happy to charge it overnight, then the battery life is certainly not a deal breaker. Real quick, before we press on, just wanted to thank the sponsor of this video, extrasafe.chat, which is the most private and secure calling and messaging app you can get. And when they say private, they mean it. Not only do you get your own extra safe number, which isn't linked to your identity, but calls and chats connect device to device using peer-to-peer. And for security, they use the same encryption methods used by blockchains like Ethereum and Bitcoin, which means decryption keys are created on your device and never leave it. But when should you use it? Well, think highly restricted conversations that you'd normally only have in person. Now you can handle them digitally with confidence. Or maybe you need to share a password with a teammate, use disappearing chats so that it auto-deletes after a set period, leaving no digital footprint behind. And a quick bonus, if a Zoom or Google Meet call glitches, just drop an extra safe link into the chat and keep the call going instantly. Oh, and that extra safe number that I mentioned at the start, it also means you can even turn a SIM-free tablet into a fully functioning calling device. It works on Android, iOS, and right in your browser, and it's free. Check it out using the first link down in the description below. Okay, from there we have the software. So the Pixel 10 actually ships with Android 16 and that big Material 3 expressive redesign, but rather than boring you with a long overview of this pretty hefty software update, I'm just gonna instead point you to the deep dive that I made not long ago called Everything Wrong with Android 16, because even though that video was made with the Pixel 9 running a beta version of the software, aside from some minor improvements in relation to fluidity and stability, almost nothing has been changed in this final release. Actually, there are even a few new quirks that I've picked up on during my time using the Pixel 10. Like initially, this navigation bar area was for some reason even taller than prior to Android 16, although thankfully that's since been patched. But there are also still heaps of apps that don't support a transparent background here, including some Google apps, believe it or not. So the fact that this still hasn't been addressed is borderline criminal in my opinion. There's also a flash of white when capturing a screenshot with the system dark theme enabled, which is great for blinding users at night. And Google have even now completely removed that really handy extra dim feature, claiming that it's been built into the brightness slider itself. But I would argue that the display still doesn't get dim enough for low light use in my opinion. And so I often still resort to using a third-party app to get it just that little bit darker. I will say though, I actually discovered this new notifications on lock screen section within the settings app, and OnePlus, Oppo, Xiaomi, and anyone else this pertains to, this setting right here, this show viewed notifications toggle, this is what you all need to add to your software because most of us want to see notifications on our lock screens even after unlocking our phones. Hopefully now that Google has added it to their software, these other manufacturers will follow suit. But look, in summary, whilst I appreciate the facelift, I've got to be honest, the Pixel experience is seriously making its way down the list in terms of my favorite Android skins, mainly thanks to its complete and utter lack of customization flexibility. But even the entire UI is starting to become a little cartoony for my liking, and it feels like you really have to wrestle with the software to get it to look and feel how you want it to. Now, obviously, if you like the look of the Pixel software experience straight out of the box, then no worries. But again, for people like me who want a little more control, these phones just are not great options. I will just point out, if you are looking to get the most out of the Pixel launcher and make it look at least a little more your own, then I actually created an in-depth customization guide which went live on the channel last week. So I'll link that up in the cards and down below in case you want to check that out. And you might be wondering, yo Sam, what about all those new AI tricks Google talked about at the launch event? Well, to be brutally honest, not only am I someone who almost never uses these sorts of features, like I actively go out of my way to hide the at-a-glance widget, for example. I also do not use Gemini that often, but then on top of that, a lot of the features don't even really work that well outside of the US, and in some cases, they don't even work that well in the US too, apparently. So look, I'm not the best person to ask when it comes to this stuff. It certainly has no relevance to me in regards to whether or not I buy a phone. And so funnily enough, as Google has kind of shown its hand at prioritizing AI related features over the years, over hardware or performance improvements, for example, I've got to say it's becoming more and more clear that Google Pixel phones are sadly becoming less and less interesting to me. And on that note, speaking of a lack of concern regarding performance improvements, let's chat about performance. Firstly, a disclaimer. If you are interested in buying this phone, do not, I repeat, do not buy the 128GB variant. I mean, it's bad enough that Google still offers this as an option, but even worse than that is that the 128GB variant has the very outdated UFS 3.1 storage speeds. On top of that, do not buy this phone expecting flagship performance. I would say you're better off expecting more upper end mid-range style performance. And in fact, I actually think a very apt comparison in terms of performance is the Nothing Phone 3, which is running an upper mid-range chip itself, the Snapdragon 8S Gen 4. But honestly, after years and years of hoping that the Tensor chipset would somehow find its feet and become a true competitor to the other flagship chips of the world, to me, this is now actually the biggest factor holding back their phones. And more so out of interest than anything, I would love to see Google swing for the fences and just go all in on Snapdragon chipsets going forward, at least for their flagships. I mean, Samsung made that move a few years back, ditching their Exynos chips in favor of Snapdragon chips, and honestly, it made a world of difference. Google, I implore you to do the same. Stick with Tensor for your mid-range phones if you like, but please, for the love of Pete, you gotta go back to Qualcomm for your flagships. And so finally, we have the cameras. And when you compare the Pixel 10 to the Pixel 9, this is undoubtedly the area where we have the biggest changes, but those changes haven't come without some controversy. The biggest talking point though, is that we now have a dedicated telephoto lens, which in all honesty, is my favorite change with this entire phone. And I've spoken at length about this in the past, that I personally value having a telephoto lens so much that it is actually a deal breaker when a phone does not include one. And so whilst I've always loved the baseline pixels over the years, I've never been able to use them beyond the review period, almost exclusively thanks to their lack of a telephoto lens. And here's the thing, whilst it's not the best telephoto lens on the market, it's also absolutely far from the worst. I mean, it offers a 5x reach, so right in line with the pros. It has OIS, it has dual pixel autofocus, and it even supports macro capability. And man, you can get really, really close with this lens. Now, in what feels like a direct exchange for that telephoto lens, Google decided to give us a slightly weaker main lens, which is now 48 megapixels instead of 50, and the sensor size is also a bit smaller. But then on top of that, they also gave us a significantly downgraded ultra-wide lens from the 48 megapixel offering on the Pixel 9 to now a pretty woeful 13 megapixel option on the Pixel 10, which itself also has a smaller aperture and a smaller sensor. Now, firstly, up front, I'm just gonna say it, for me personally, that is absolutely a trade I'm willing to make. But here's the other thing. Remember how Google Pixel phones used to have the reputation of having the best image processing on any phone? Well, all that was whilst they were using very, very small sensor sizes, much smaller even compared to what we have on the baseline Pixel 10. And so as such, as far as images are concerned at least, I've not had any complaints in regards to the results that this phone has been able to produce, because the post-processing once again works like magic. Now, probably the biggest consequence of the main lens and ultra-wide lens getting a downgrade though is in regards to video quality, because that's really one area that post-processing can only do so much, and there's also no video boost functionality because it's the base model. So if you're a big video shooter and you're looking for the best video capturer out there, then this definitely ain't the phone for you. And look, I think what frustrates a lot of people is that we already had a great main and ultra-wide lens on last year's Pixel 9, and now they've taken them away. But honestly, the baseline Pixel was already so dang close to the pros that I can't ever imagine a world where they would have kept those same sensors and just added a telephoto lens. Literally, no one would have bought the pro models if they'd done that. Like, this is a trade that I think needed to happen to get the telephoto lens, and like I said, I'm personally very on board with the trade. Now, I know not everyone will agree with me, but here's the thing, if you liked the cameras on the base Pixel 9 so much, then just buy the Pixel 9. It is still a great phone that is very similar to the Pixel 10, plus it's way more affordable now. Now we've just got the option of having a baseline model with a telephoto lens, so for me, this move was absolutely the right one. And so with all that in mind, here's my takeaway on this phone. I really, really like it. And as long as you're not someone who's looking for bleeding edge performance or really in-depth customization capability or multi-day battery life, then I can guarantee that you'll most likely love it too. In fact, this might just be the device to get out of all the Pixel variants released this year, especially when you consider just how close the feature set is compared to the Pro models. That said, I will be reviewing the Pixel 10 Pro a little later this year, so hit that subscribe button so you don't miss that when it goes live, because once I've had a good amount of time using the Pro model, I'll really be able to assess whether this baseline version does indeed hold up. Aside from that, let me know what you think of this phone down in the comments, because I'm keen to hear your thoughts. But aside from that, thank you all very much for watching, and I will catch you later.